Alright, hello everyone. Welcome back to the BattlePlans podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the causes of World War II because we talked about the causes of World War I last time. It would be 2 weeks ago now. I didn't get one on last week because I wasn't able to. World War II has a lot of causes. Prominent among them was the Treaty of Versailles. This was the treaty after World War I ended, which basically meant Germany had to pay a bunch of reparations. So it's like they have to pay a lot of money to all these different countries, and they were never going to pay that off. Like, realistically, everyone living in Germany at the time would never see that debt paid off in their lifetime, or maybe even their grandchildren's lifetime. The German mark was devalued so much that people were bringing literal wheelbarrows of the mark to pay for things like bread. So Germany, of course, had to go to war with the people that basically put them into debt forever in order to get rid of that debt. If they could conquer those countries, they wouldn't have to pay that off anymore. It was basically, it was an impossibility or something a little bit more probable. However, it was still pretty much impossible. Secondly, we have economic depression. In the late 1920s, there's a lot of economic depression. So, this just compounds upon the problem that a lot of countries were hurting for money because that's what war does. It drains countries of money, especially Germany. This is how Adolf Hitler came to rise, how he became the leader of Germany, because he was promising things like getting out of this economic depression. Of course, this leads into Germany's militarism. Hitler building up Germany's army and weapons, even though he wasn't allowed to. Like, that was part of the Treaty of Versailles, that Germany was not allowed to have an army over this size. They weren't allowed to have, like, this amount of air force or, boats, the Navy. And he started building it up, and no one cared, which was pretty bad. This could have been ended a lot sooner. And then we have this concept of this failure of appeasement. Appeasement was basically agreeing to the demands of another nation in order to avoid conflict. But Germany wasn't going to appease these other nations. They were sick of it. They were done. This goes back to, their currency being super devalued and the Treaty of Versailles being super unfair. Right? I mean, World War I was bad, but you can't realistically make a country pay something that they're never going to pay. That accomplishes nothing. Then we also have the failure of the League of Nations. So this was an international organization set up in 1919. So that's like the year after World War I ended. And it was intended that all countries would be members. And if there was a dispute, like the beginning of World War I, then it could be settled by like negotiation rather than more wars. But it never really worked because a lot of countries didn't want to join the League. And the League also had no army to prevent more aggression, such as like Italy's invasion of Ethiopia or Japan's invasion of Manchuria, which is just this part of China. We also have Japan's militarism. You can't forget about the Pacific. Japan was also hit badly by the economic depression, and the Japanese people kind of lost faith in their government. So, of course, they turned on the army, and Japan needed more goods, right? They're this tiny island, or, there are these tiny islands, right? Comparative to the rest of the world, so they needed more land, and the easiest target was China, who is weakened significantly, just with a ton of stuff. I don't want to go into it now, but China was almost on the brink of destruction at this point. So, of course, Japan tried to conquer them, and so that brings us to the end of Italy, Germany, and France. Italy, Germany, and Japan allying because they wanted more land. Also, Russia for a period of time. Basically, they were trying to resolve what they didn't get finished in World War I, and that was taking more land, taking over these smaller countries, or taking parts of these weakened larger countries to solve their economic and imperialist problems. So, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you guys next week for another episode. I haven't decided what it is yet, but if you're in the future, then you should tell me. Alright, adios.